Hey friends, and welcome to a fresh take on Herald of Thunder, the Poison Occultist Herald of Thunder. Now, there's a lot going on here, but let's start at the beginning. When the changes to Voltaxic Rift were announced at the beginning of this league, the first thing I thought about was, I could convert Herald of Thunder to chaos damage. To me, this meant that I could realistically run an Occultist because the Ascendancy now had a synergy with the build, not just having the benefit of Profane Bloom. So I went for it. The damage wasn't great to start with until someone suggested to me, why not try Poison? At first, I thought this would be hard. There are not very many Poison passives near the Witch, and that makes getting enough Poison chance challenging. That is, until we introduced Cosprey's Will. Cosprey's Will makes all hits against cursed enemies poison. So as long as we are cursing, we poison. And of course, we have temp chains on hit. And that is the base of this build, the rue that makes Poison Herald of Thunder work. Voltaxic Rift to convert to chaos, Cosprey's Will to poison cursed enemies, and a temp chains corruption on our gloves to apply temp chains on hit. Once we had this formula figured out, the damage actually came pretty easy. We already had Wither, so we can stack on Despair, and 20 million plus damage was not out of reach for the build, but the survivability felt off. So now we need to make the build feel good to play. No need to be tanky, but we also don't want to get annihilated by every monster we see. For our defenses, we are primarily utilizing Eternal Damnation, which gives us additional elemental damage reduction equal to half of our chaos resistance. This comes at the cost of a lower maximum resistance. That isn't quite enough on its own though. We also have a bit of max lightning res, Petrified Blood, Progenesis, which is basically a mini Petrified Blood, and finally we have cast when damage taken Molten Shell, which is giving us a defensive layer based on our armor. Now for our armor, we are utilizing Iron Reflexes on our relic, which is converting all of our evasion into armor. With flasks up, this is usually giving us something around 15,000 armor. This build has been a ton of fun to put together, and ended up being able to kill Uber Eater, which exceeded my expectation. I think this build has more potential than I ended up getting out of it, but I'm happy calling this wild experiment a resounding success. The damage potential has me thinking maybe scaling Herald of Thunder through Poison is the right way to go. In the end, this version of the build hits right around 16 million single target DPS, which in the world of Herald of Thunder is pretty respectable. If you want to give this build a go, here is what you need to know. Herald of Thunder builds need at least one Storm Secret to really get going. This makes you take damage when you hit something with your Herald, but in return it hits more often and activates when you shock an enemy rather than when you kill a shocked enemy. You will also almost always need a Calamitous Visions small cluster jewel. This gives you Lone Messenger, which essentially doubles the damage of your Herald of Thunder, but it comes at the cost of losing all other aura skills. And last, you need some mechanism to shock your enemies and keep your storm rolling. In my build, we have two methods. We have Stormbrand, and we have Crackling Lance, which is linked to cast when damage taken. Stormbrand we are casting manually. Crackling Lance is cast whenever we take a certain amount of damage. They are both linked to Overcharge to give more shock chance, Withering Touch to apply extra wither, and Culling Strike to go ahead and cull those nasty bosses we are dealing with. Another little discovery that I made that I didn't actually calculate into our DPS is Sigil of Power. Sigil of Power gives added lightning damage that is totally generic. This is important because most lightning damage buffs come in the form of 2 attacks or 2 spells, or 2 attacks and 2 spells, but Herald of Thunder is neither, and so in order to add damage to it, we need generic lightning damage addition. Sigil of Power gives us that generic lightning damage. However, getting Sigil of Power stacked to the stages that we need is a little difficult. So while it's a nice DPS boost, I didn't include it because it seems pretty iffy to me as to whether we'll actually get it going. This knowledge should get you started on your own Herald of Thunder journey, and I hope you enjoy it. If you want to check this build out specifically, you can check the build details in the POB below. So a couple of notes on the POB that I didn't mention earlier. In the configurations, you'll find some custom modifiers that we're utilizing to represent things that aren't showing up correctly. Number one is the 100% chance to poison. This is coming from Cosprey's Will. So if we go take a look at Cosprey's Will, we see that always poison on hit against cursed enemies. It doesn't seem to be working correctly in POB. I don't see any configuration that allows that to work, so we're modifying it with this custom modifier so that we can see our damage. Number two is Iron Reflexes. We're getting this from our relic, which is not imported into POB. My relic looks like this, but any beneficial relic will work with Iron Reflexes. Herald of Thunder for me is a feel-good skill and one that I love experimenting with. I hope you enjoyed this experiment, and I can't wait for the next one. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Up there almost daily. It's how I pass time, no opinion, safely. It's how I understand what I want in this place. See, cause everybody wanna teach that they